Welcome to the Selfie Seeker Deep Dive, exploring attachment styles in the movies. Through their stories, well, you can often uncover your own inner patterns. Today we're kicking off with something kind of provocative. Think about this. Your body always knows when you're lying, even, maybe especially, when you're lying to yourself. You know that tightness in your chest, or maybe shallow breathing, that sudden, urge to grab your phone or pour a drink. What if those signals aren't just random anxiety? What if that's actually truth? Kind of trying to break through the noise.
It's a really powerful place to start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we all do it. We construct these protective narratives, these sort of carefully edited versions of ourselves that we show the world. And we're doing it hoping to earn love or respect or just feel like we're worthy. Often it goes way
Yeah.
back to childhood wounds maybe, that fractured our inherent sense of value and made us feel like we constantly have to prove we belong.
Okay, so then what happens? What happens when reality, the actual facts of your life just keeps poking holes in that story? When the narrative you've told yourself over and over just stops working? When it can't hold up against what's actually true? When maybe the life you've built turns out to be, well, built on sand
Yeah.
and the walls start crumbling?
And that's exactly where attachment styles become so incredibly relevant. They really reveal those deep, ingrained patterns of how we react when those protective stories collapse under pressure.
Right. And this is episode 4 of our deep dive. So if you happen to be new to attachment theory, we really recommend starting back with episode 1. We look at the film closer there, and it gives a good grounding in the 4 main styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and the one we're focusing on today, disorganized or fearful avoidant.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're zoning in on a film that just lays bare the most maybe extreme version of this collapse. It really showcases disorganized attachment in its rawest form.
Hmm.
We're talking about Blue Jasmine from 2013.
Hmm.
Kate Blanchett, who won an Oscar for it, it just embodies this. It's a devastating look at a nervous system frantically cycling between this desperate need for connection and then suddenly protective withdrawal, especially when reality intrudes.
Her performance is just, it's incredible because you really feel it. You feel what happens when someone's internal world gets so chaotic they just can't form a coherent response to anything. And for Jasmine, her wound around worthiness and her attachment wound, they seem totally inseparable.
They really are. It's like she desperately needs connection, but at the same time, actual intimacy feels, well, intolerable. So she's constantly flipping between these opposite strategies because neither one actually makes her feel safe. It's a terrible bind.
All right, so quick heads up here. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Blue Jasmine, seriously, we really recommend you pause this deep dive right now and go watch it. Honestly, the depth of what we're going to talk about, it just hits differently if you've actually witnessed Jasmine's journey. We'll be here when you get back.
The screen tells their story, but the echo is ours. Attachment styles in the movies with selfie seeker deep dive, because through their stories you can uncover your own inner patterns.
All right, so for those of you who've seen it, maybe it's been a while, here's a quick recap. The film follows Jasmine French. She used to live this life of incredible luxury with her husband, Hal, a wealthy financier.
Right. Till it all comes crashing down. His massive financial fraud is exposed, and then he takes his own life.
Ugh.
So Jasmine is stripped of everything, her status, her wealth, her entire identity, really.
Yeah.
She has to move from New York to San Francisco to live with her working-class sister, Ginger.
Yeah, and she shows up still clinging to her Louis Vuitton luggage, the symbol of her past life. And while she's living with Ginger, she just spirals. She swings between denial, these moments of grandiosity, and then just complete psychological collapse.
Uh-huh. And we watch her alienate pretty much everyone around her. She invents these elaborate fantasies, especially involving this wealthy diplomat, Dwight. She's trying desperately to reclaim that glamorous life she lost.
But whenever reality pierces through that story she's telling herself, she just recoils in panic.
And there are these flashbacks throughout the film, right? They show how she practiced this kind of willful blindness about Hal's crimes for years. But then That turns into this rage-fueled call to the FBI, but only after she finds out about his affair. It wasn't about the crime itself.
Right, it was the betrayal of the attachment.
Exactly.
And the film culminates in her complete mental breakdown. By the end, she's just fragmented, sitting alone on a park bench, talking to people who weren't there, clutching this memory of Blue Moon, which was like her and Hal's song. Their idealized, now vanished love.
What Blue Jasmine illustrates so powerfully, I think, is the sheer, utter exhaustion of trying to maintain contradictory, protective narratives. Jasmine's whole curated life, the designer clothes, the parties, the social status, it all serves her disorganized attachment system.
How so?
Well, it's constantly alternating these frantic attempts to secure love and admiration, perform worthiness, but at the same time, putting up these desperate protective barriers against any real intimacy or vulnerability.
And when reality just keeps jabbing at those contradictory stories.
Yeah, that's when you see the raw fragmentation underneath. It's a nervous system that just cannot settle. You can't find coherent connection, but it also can't find sustainable independence. Trapped.
Okay. So to really unpack this collapse and maybe even think about pathways forward, not just for her, but for us, we're going to explore Jasmine's story using the Pathway to Sovereignty framework. This comes from Helen Mudiba, and it maps out 6 levels of human experience.
Right. It starts with survival. This is where you're focused on immediate safety, often in a state of high alert or shutdown, like Jasmine a lot of the time. Then comes stability, which is about finding some inner calm, some predictability both inside yourself and in your environment. After that is self-awareness. This is where you start understanding your own patterns, your triggers, what's going on inside.
Okay.
Then integrity, aligning your actions with your core values, with your authentic self, followed by wholeness, which is about integrating all the different parts of yourself, embracing both the light and the shadow. And finally, freedom, living authentically, feeling connected, and not being so burdened by those old patterns.
That's a really helpful map. So as we dig into Jasmine's story, let's look at how her fragmented narrative really is her disorganized attachment strategy and where she gets stuck on this pathway. Let's start right at the beginning, that flight scene. Jasmine is just compulsively telling her entire life story, the idealized version, to a total stranger on the plane. What's happening there, attachment-wise?
Oh, it's such a classic disorganized pattern right off the bat. You see this need to simultaneously merge emotionally. I mean, she's sharing incredibly intimate details, right?
Yeah, with someone she doesn't know at all.
Exactly. But she's also maintaining distance because it's a one-sided monologue. She's broadcasting. She's not actually connecting. The stranger is just a captive audience, not someone she's actually relating with. This frantic cycling, even in just her opening monologue, it places her firmly in that survival level on the pathway. She's struggling to find any kind of coherent ground.
That makes so much sense. And it continues right when she arrives at Ginger's place, doesn't it? She shows up with the Louis Vuitton luggage, the first-class ticket stub, even though she immediately confesses to Ginger she's worse than tapped out, like completely broke. That seems like more than just denial.
Oh, absolutely. It is more than denial. It's the disorganized attachment doing its thing. Simultaneously acknowledging complete dependency. She needs Ginger desperately and trying to maintain these superiority fantasies.
Like, I'm broke, but I'm still too good for Coach.
Precisely. That Louis Vuitton luggage isn't just baggage. It's a prop. It's a desperate performance of worthiness, an attempt to keep a fragile narrative intact, even though it directly contradicts her reality. It's a perfect example of staying stuck in survival, clinging to those external markers instead of finding any internal stability.
And then there's that phrase she uses, I can't breathe. We hear it in moments of just extreme overwhelm, like at the dentist's office or when things just get too real. What's her body telling her and us there?
Her body is screaming what her mind just cannot integrate. That I can't breathe isn't just about air. It's her nervous system cycling incredibly rapidly between that anxious activation, sheer panic, and then avoidant shutdown, those fragmented somatic responses.
Or freezing up.
Yeah, or just feeling completely overwhelmed, disconnected. It happens whenever the outside world threatens her contradictory protective stories. Her system is basically shouting, I cannot process this. I cannot absorb this truth. It's the body surrendering to an internal battle it can't win. A really clear sign of being physiologically stuck in the chaos of survival.
Her body really is the truth teller there. Okay, so this desperate grip on worth, it also shows up in how she treats others, right? Like her contempt for Chili, Ginger's boyfriend. She calls him a loser. And she implies Ginger is never too bright, all while she's completely dependent on them for support. How does that fit the disorganized pattern?
Oh, it fits perfectly.
Mm,
It exemplifies that simultaneous devaluation and clinging. It's a defense
that's
mechanism
what?
against her own deep-seated terror of worthlessness. By putting them down, she tries to artificially elevate herself even while she desperately needs them for basic survival shelter, money. And you see it again later when Dwight confronts her about her lies. Her first reaction isn't honesty, it's, "Don't talk to me in that tone."
Right. Trying to control the interaction.
Exactly. Trying to control the interaction, defer the authentic contact, avoid the actual exposure. It's another tactic to stay in survival by trying to manage the external environment, however futilely.
And when that control fails, like when Dwight finally ends things because the lies are too much, we see this rapid disengagement from her. She just says flatly, if it's over, it's over. It seems so dismissive, but underneath.
Underneath, it's masking sheer anxious terror. It's the collapse of the disorganized system when neither strategy clinging desperately or dismissing coldly provides any safety. Her system defaults to that dismissive stance, but it's a last-ditch effort to regain some kind of internal control, to avoid the overwhelming pain of abandonment. It's not real indifference at all.
No.
It's profound system dysregulation, still oscillating frantically within survival because a coherent response just isn't available to her.
And then there's that memory she shares with Ginger, that incredibly painful story about having to work selling shoes and encountering her former wealthy friends as customers. Why was that specific moment so devastating for her?
Because for Jasmine, that status reversal felt like existential annihilation. It hit right at her core worth wound. For someone whose entire identity was so tightly wrapped up in external validation, money, status, that moment wasn't just humiliating. It felt like a public declaration that she was fundamentally worthless.
A threat to her very being.
Yes, it pushed her deeper and deeper into the desperate state of survival.
So let's talk about when reality just keeps relentlessly poking holes in her story. We see that compartmentalized awareness in the flashbacks, like when she claims about Hal's business, "Oh, I sign anything Hal puts in front of me. I'm very trusting." And that dinner guest just says dryly, "It's called looking the other way."
That line is chilling, isn't it? It's such a hallmark of disorganized attachment, this ability to know and not know at the same time. She couldn't afford, emotionally or literally, to truly see what Hal was doing, because seeing it would have cost her everything, the lifestyle, the status, the attachment itself.
The whole narrative.
The whole narrative. So to maintain that illusion of safety and worth, her mind had to compartmentalize. It's a tactic that keeps her trapped firmly in survival by actively avoiding those uncomfortable, dangerous truths.
And then the FBI call. After she discovers Hal's affair with the au pair, what was really driving that action? It wasn't suddenly finding a moral compass about his financial crimes.
Not at all. That action was driven entirely by the profound threat to her attachment, her sense of betrayal, her whole perceived reality shattering. It's pure anxious rage fused with avoid and elimination. If you hurt me this badly, I will destroy you.
Right.
When that core attachment is threatened, when her trust is betrayed so profoundly, her system just goes into complete dysregulation. It lashes out, destroying everything in a desperate, albeit unconscious, attempt to regain control or eliminate the source of pain. It's an act of profound system collapse, not a considered choice, still deeply rooted in that reactive survival state.
And she keeps trying to control the flow of information, even when it's impossible. Like when Augie, Ginger's ex who lost his money because of Hal, confronts her and exposes her lies to Dwight right there on the street outside the jewelry store. Her reaction is, "Can we please not get into this on the street?"
Yeah, that desperate plea reveals her need to control the when and where of intimacy or exposure. She's trying to manage the narrative, even as it's literally falling apart around her in public, trying to create some kind of safe container for the inevitable collapse. It's another buffering attempt against overwhelming reality, a strategy to maintain some illusion of control within her survival state.
It happens again with the dentist, too, right, Dr. Flicker? He's clearly hitting on her, pressuring her, using the nitrous oxide, and her visceral response is again, "I can't breathe."
Yes, that physical boundary violation becomes unbearable. But instead of it being a moment where she can maybe recognize the intrusion, feel her anger, set a boundary,
She just flees.
she flees into fantasy. She can't integrate the experience. Her body is just screaming, "Cannot handle this input," which leads to that flight response. It prevents her, again, from moving beyond survival.
It's interesting, though, because she does have these glimpses of potential tools. Right there in the dental office, she actually mumbles something about her yoga training, how it could come helpful now. But then in the next breath, she immediately reaches for Xanax. What does that tell us?
Oh, that moment is so telling. It perfectly demonstrates the disorganized pattern. She can simultaneously recognize an internal resource, yoga, breath work, something embodied, but her system immediately chooses the rapid chemical stabilization instead.
The quick fix.
The quick fix. Her deeply ingrained attachment pattern drives her to the fastest, most external route to perceived stability, even if it completely bypasses genuine internal regulation. It's just a tragic cycle within survival. She can literally name a potential path towards self-awareness, but her system is far too dysregulated to actually take it.
And then maybe the final nail in the coffin of her old life. Her stepson Danny's absolute rejection. When she finally tracks him down and he just says, coldly, I want the past past.
Yeah, that was brutal. It effectively severs her last desperate lifeline, her last attempt to connect to her old life, her family, any remnant of who she thought she was.
All the external props are gone.
Completely gone. The illusion of connection to her past is shattered. And this just pushes her further into fragmentation. It highlights her total inability to pivot towards stability or self-awareness. There's nowhere left to go but down.
Which leads us to that devastating final scene, the complete attachment collapse. Jasmine, alone on that park bench, talking to invisible companions, lost in the memory of Blue Moon.
It's the creation of phantom relationships, isn't it? It allows her both a fantasy of connection, she's talking to someone, and profound isolation simultaneously. It really represents the furthest point possible from coherent attachment. It's a complete disintegration of her nervous system's ability to regulate or relate.
She's not even trying to self-soothe anymore.
No. At that point, she's beyond even attempting regulation. Neither the anxious clinging strategies nor the avoidant dismissing strategies can offer any sense of safety. She is completely fragmented, utterly stuck in survival, unable to access any other level of the pathway to sovereignty.
Wow. So when we pull back and look at the bigger themes, the metaphors here, first, it seems clear that for Jasmine, worth and attachment are just inextricably tangled up in this fragmentation.
Absolutely. Disorganized attachment often forms, as we know, when the source of care, like a parent, is also a source of threat or fear. It creates this impossible double bind. And her Louis Vuitton luggage, coming back to that, it symbolizes this contradiction perfectly. It's meant to be a symbol of worth, something that proves she's deserving.
But it also maintains distance, right? It separates her from her current reality with Ginger.
Exactly. It's a prop for her fragmented identity.
Yeah.
A physical manifestation of her survival strategy. Trying to prove she belongs while desperately staying disconnected from the vulnerability of her actual situation.
And then there's the contrast between her polished self and, well, her unpolished self, or maybe Jasmine versus Ginger. Jasmine's relentless curated perfection, her contempt for her own vulnerability, versus Ginger, who is flawed, messy, but ultimately authentic. And Ginger attracts real connection because of it.
It's such a stark contrast. Jasmine would literally rather descend into madness, into talking to ghosts on a park bench, than accept the ordinary, imperfect love in life that Ginger finds. She cannot tolerate moving towards integrity or wholeness. It feels too threatening.
So the protective narrative itself becomes the disorganized strategy.
Yes, the sheer exhaustion we see in Jasmine, that's the exhaustion of maintaining those contradictory narratives. I must be perfect and distant. I must be superior and connected. It's the exhaustion of disorganized attachment itself, constantly cycling between trying to earn connection and trying to maintain independence. It's utterly unsustainable. She's locked in survival, completely unable to find stability.
Which brings us back to the body as the truth teller. That I can't breathe. It's her body signaling the attachment system fragmenting when reality gets too close, when the psychological buffers fail.
Oh, precisely. It's the system collapsing because neither strategy, anxious, or avoidant is working anymore. And this is where the pathway to sovereignty framework is so useful. We see Jasmine deeply trapped in survival. Her disorganized attachment prevents the kind of coherent presence needed to even begin building stability. The framework offers a powerful contrast. It shows how healing requires moving towards sustained attention, towards one coherent response, rather than fragmenting between opposites, which is what keeps us stuck.
Okay, so bringing this back to you, listening right now, what's the relevance of all this for you as a selfie seeker?
Well, first, a selfie seeker recognizes that the mirror matters, right? How we see ourselves. Jasmine couldn't see herself coherently at all. She only saw herself through this incredibly distorted lens of idealization one minute and devaluation the next. It was like a funhouse mirror created by her disorganized attachment. Absolutely. And the invitation here, for you, the listener, is really to find some coherent ground beneath maybe your own fragmented attachment strategies, if this resonates. It's not about somehow transcending the need for connection. We all need that. It's about discovering that you are inherently worthy of it right now without having to cycle between these exhausting, contradictory narratives. It's about the possibility of moving towards stability and eventually towards wholeness.
And it feels important to say, too, that disorganized attachment isn't some kind of life sentence. It's often a really creative, intelligent adaptation to impossible early circumstances. But those adaptations might not be serving you anymore. Seeing the pattern is just information for growth. It's not a static identity. It's like a map showing a potential path from survival towards freedom. Okay. So let's take just a moment here for some personal reflections. Maybe pause after each question and just, sit with it for a second, see what comes up for you. First, what contradictory props, maybe not Louis Vuitton luggage, but what internal or external props might you be using to simultaneously prove your worth and maintain distance from true intimacy? Second, when does your body say, I can't breathe, or give you similar signals? When does your attachment system seem to cycle rapidly between strategies? Maybe that familiar panic followed quickly by cold withdrawal, especially when reality threatens your carefully constructed narratives. Third, thinking about the pathway to sovereignty, survival, stability, self-awareness, integrity, wholeness, freedom. Where do you feel you're genuinely operating most of the time? Are you cycling mainly in survival, like Jasmine, or are you finding moments, maybe longer stretches, of coherent stability? Fourth, what's your polished self, the version you present to the world? And what's your inner ginger, maybe the flawed, messy, but authentic self underneath? How much space does that inner ginger get? And finally, like Jasmine remembering her yoga training but immediately reaching for the pills, what internal resources or tools do you know you have but perhaps immediately bypass for contradictory external solutions when you're seeking comfort or stability?
Exploring attachment through characters like Jasmine really underscores how these fictional people can be profound mirrors. And just that recognition, that moment of seeing a flicker of ourselves in their struggles, that is often the very first crucial step towards change.
And maybe Jasmine's deepest tragedy wasn't just losing the money or the status, as awful as that was. Maybe it was that she robbed herself of any chance at genuine love because she could never, ever settle into believing that her authentic, ordinary, maybe even messy self actually deserved it.
Her inability to integrate those contradictory parts, her good and her bad, her strong and her vulnerable, that's what ultimately led to her tragic descent into madness.
And the contrast with Ginger is just so powerful there at the end.
It really is.
Yeah.
Ginger, without the fancy clothes or perfect grammar, she had something Jasmine never found. Real people who saw her, flaws and all, and chose to stay. Her flawed authenticity drew real connection in a way that Jasmine's fragmented performance never ever could. Ginger, in her own way, shows us a path towards integrity and wholeness.
So, here's the invitation for you, listening now. What contradictory versions of yourself might you be trying to maintain? Where are you potentially exhausting yourself, cycling between opposite strategies, maybe convinced, like Jasmine was, that only this fragmented approach can possibly secure both the connection you crave and the protection you feel you need?
And the Pathway to Sovereignty framework offers this hope. It shows us that when our own contradictory protective narratives start to collapse under reality's pressure, which happens to all of us sometimes, it doesn't have to be a catastrophe. It can actually be a doorway. We don't have to just try and rebuild the same unstable, fragmented structures. We can choose to move from that fragmented survival towards coherent stability and eventually towards freedom. But
There's a but.
there's a but. But only if we're willing to actually feel what our old attachment patterns have been protecting us from integrating all this time. That's the work.
Remember this. The worth you might be desperately trying to prove through those contradictory attachment strategies, it was never actually missing. It's been there all along, waiting patiently beneath the fragmentation, honestly, as close as your next coherent breath. And as Ginger showed us, sometimes just integrated authenticity attracts far more real, sustainable love than any fragmented performance ever could. So if this deep dive stirred something significant in you today, if you recognize some of yourself in Jasmine's disorganized patterns, or if you feel like your own contradictory strategies might be starting to fail under reality's pressure, we have a free experiential resource we created specifically to support you. It's called Where Am I on the Staircase to Sovereignty?
Yeah, this is a guide that includes 6 really powerful yet simple practices. Plus, there's a guided meditation. And it's all designed specifically to help you begin to move from those potentially disorganized attachment strategies towards what we call earned security. It offers a clear map, really, for how to navigate these moments of collapse, not seeing them as an end, but potentially as a beginning, the start of something far more integrated and whole.
You can find it by visiting a website. That's website for your free Where Am I on the Staircase to Sovereignty guide and meditation. It's a really powerful tool just to help you start that journey if it feels right for you. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Join us next time where another film will open up another mirror for self-discovery.
The screen tells their story, but the echo is ours. Attachment styles in the mood.